support staff and our leaders. We saw growth in all subject areas across our district, and we are excited to talk about those numbers. Here with me, I have Dr. Adams, who is going to share specifics.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Renard Adams. I'm the Chief Accountability and Equity Officer for the district. I wanted to share a few data highlights that show that we're headed in the right direction, and yet we know that we still have more work to do. Overall, PPS students in the 3 through 8 grade band saw a year-over-year increase of 1.5 percentage points in English language arts and an increase of 2.0 percentage points in mathematics. When we look at our racial student groups across the 3-8 band overall, all racial student groups saw both gains in ELA and mathematics. As we look at those across different grade bands, and what I mean by that is grade 3 through 5, grade 6 through 8, grades 3 through 8, PPS year-over-year changes were positive in all grade bands, except for our Latinx students in elementary school, where there was a decline of 2.4 percentage points. In mathematics, there's a similar story, where our Latinx students in elementary school saw a slight decline. Students receiving special ed services saw increased performance in the middle grades band, and when we look at their performance over grades 3 through 8, with grades 3 through 5 remaining relatively flat. In mathematics, students with disabilities showed increased performance across all of the grade bands, so we're proud about that. If I talk about individual grade level performance, our one-year achievement changes were positive in most individual grade levels. In ELA, students in grades 4 and 8 showed the most growth, with 3.4 and 4.1 percentage point gains respectively. In grades 3 through 5, we saw small declines of 0.9 percentage points and 0.1 percentage points. And in mathematics, the only decline was in grade 3 with 1.2 percentage points, while the strongest growth in mathematics was in grade 7 and grades 8, where we saw 3.2 and 5.2 percentage points respectively. What I'm getting really excited about, beyond what I've just shared with you, is the fact that we're now exceeding pre-pandemic achievement levels in mathematics, and we're just about there in English language arts. We're just missing that mark of meeting our pre-pandemic performance by 0.5 of a percentage point. I'd like to shout out to some individual schools. We have several elementary schools that showed positive gains in ELA and mathematics at the same time. I would have you here all day if I named all of them, so I'm just going to pick on a select few. And those elementary schools include Glencoe, Lee Elementary, Markham, and Wrigler, just to name a few. And we also had some middle schools that showed the same achievement, where they showed growth in English language arts and mathematics. And those include, and we could spotlight, Harriet Tubman Middle School, Hosford Middle School, Beaumont, Kellogg, and Roseway Heights. Again, while we are pleased with this progress, we know we still have persistent gaps along the lines of race and ethnicity. We know that we have more work to do, and we believe we're on the right track. We know our students are capable, our educators and building leaders are so very talented and skilled, and that we know our families are ready and willing to partner with us to reach our goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. So it's clear, from our boardroom to our classroom, we have individuals that are focused on the rise of students and intent on making sure that all of our resources and support are directed in our classrooms where it is needed most. We'd love to answer any questions that you may have.
Is there any indication on why the group that does have a decline or showing those decreased numbers is showing it compared to other groups?
Great.
That's a great question. It's one of the things that we're working to unpack. I know that we want to make sure that our Latinx students and our multilingual learner students, our students that don't speak English as a first language, are showing improvement. And so we see this as we use data as a flashlight to let us know where we need to examine, and the teaching and learning team is doing just that work. Unfortunately, our senior chief of academics is ill today and wasn't able to join us for the conference where she could talk about some of those specific things. One of the things I can say we're working on is an integrated model for teaching students whose first language isn't English, that will involve more collaboration between teachers of those students and our general education teachers.
Dr. Adams, I know you briefly spoke about the racial equity gaps between outcomes for
Well, I think we still, to this day, see the remnants of systemic racism, right? We know that there's a color line, and the browner the student, it appears wherever I've been, the less likely they are to be close to academic justice with their white peers. And so what we continue to do is work on our racial equity work, understanding helping staff through training understand where their biases may be, and we continue to insist that everybody hold themselves and every student to high expectations. It's inside out work, right? There isn't a boxed thing we can implement that's gonna absolutely change that. It's individual work at the individual teacher level, at the building level, at the central office level, to really get in a stance where we know our students are capable and we know we're capable of getting them where they need to be.
And then statewide, numbers show a dip in proficiency for 4th and 5th graders, and those were students who were in kindergarten doing at-home learning for COVID. So where does Portland see the most room for improvement, and how does the district plan to address that?
Sure, I believe we see, again, the most room for improvement for our COVID babies as they matriculate through school. We're trying to do a lot of academic recovery. That's why we continue to provide summer acceleration programming and things like that for targeted students. It's also why we made an investment in teacher interventionists at middle and elementary grades, where we saw students, those positions were allocated to schools where we saw students that had the most need. So we understand that we have some challenges. We understand that our COVID babies are coming to us with more screen time sometimes than teacher time, and we're working to try to close those gaps. What I'm excited about, again, is districts across Oregon and across the country are trying to get back to where they were pre-pandemic, and we're doing that here in Portland. So I'm excited about that. That's not me saying that pre-pandemic performance was enough. It's me saying it's a bar that we're all across the nation trying to get back to show some academic recovery.
And then how independent is each school district of OD's policies?
Could you unpack the question a little bit more for me?
I guess like creating policies, do you have to listen to what OD says, or kind of are you independent and create your own policies for student success?
Well, we follow their framework for accountability, which comes first from the federal Every Student Succeeds Act and flows down through the ODE. And so we have a lot of leeway in how we do it within some guidelines. They don't tell us what curricula to use or for our teachers to use. They do ask us, however, to revise and bring in curriculum on a cycle. And so we work within the bounds of all the Division 22 ODE requirements to make sure we're providing quality education programming for students across PPS.
I know there's like disparities also in achievement between schools. So some schools have achieved more on the OSAS than other schools. I'm curious how PPS is leveraging, the schools that have found success, Harriet Tubman, Rigler, et cetera, to, help those schools that maybe are not seeing as big of gains and what that looks like.
Sure. So I would like probably to invite Dr. Isaac Cardona, our Chief of Schools, up to talk about the professional learning work that we're doing with our building leaders.
So we've already begun to highlight some of the work that we've seen. The principal of Harriet Tubman got to lead some professional learning at our back to school leadership for principals. And so highlighting the work that they were doing, both with the instructional leadership teams and coaching and developing teachers. So it's been very exciting to learn from folks that are already seeing great gains over the course of the past year. And we're keeping that going. So every month we pull together principals to be in each other's buildings and learning best practices. And then from there, they go back and incorporate those into their own classrooms.
Instead of being at a school where we can maybe hear directly from the folks who have been working on the ground about all the initiatives that you guys have been talking about.
Yeah, so you're talking about our teachers as our primary sources.
Sure, or reading interventionists or principals or instructional coaches, which I know Dr. Adams has named as a key piece of the strategy here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I think the way that I can answer that, I think if I understand your question, is we are utilizing our resources, hearing directly from staff about what they need in order to stay focused on grade level standard aligned work. And so through listening sessions and conversations, we've heard from our educators that, we learn best when it's from our peers, right? And so making sure that we're listening and responding to the instruction and support that our folks in the classroom need, and then making sure that we keep the conversation centered on progress for students. Like we mentioned earlier, the investments from the state on early literacy has been significant. When I think about the way in which we respond to supporting around English language arts, or what we also like to just say is literacy, is making sure that we have high impact tutoring happening, which is all about frequency and consistency, making sure that we are targeting students who could use that support. And so we have interventionists, we have tutors, we have different models that get at the heart of the work around growing our students' proficiency in those areas.
And I'm curious, Dr. Armstrong, since you bring up the state, what else would you like to see, or what else do you need from the state? Because obviously, though PPS has bested state averages, there are certainly significant pockets of students that remain far below their peers. So
Yeah,
what else do you
absolutely.
need?
Yeah, so we do have a lot of work to do. We know that it's important to pause and celebrate some of those wins that are because of the work of our teachers, our staff in schools and in classrooms. And we also know that we continue to be under-resourced as a district, right? So despite what's happening in our city, despite some of the resources that we're lacking, we're still seeing progress. Small numbers, right? Still worth a celebration. I will say that I stand before you waiting and hoping for that day when we can talk about 10 to 15% growth, or when we're talking about 100% of our students achieving. And in order to do that is making sure that we have the resources that we need to continue the work of teaching and learning in our schools. So that's how I'd answer that.
But you're preparing to cut, remind us how much it is this year,
Yeah.
another 40 million?
Yes, we are. We are facing another budget reduction, which is about 40 million, another 5%. You may recall that last year we had a 5% reduction, which was impactful, right? That meant that there were fewer resources in the different spaces across Portland Public Schools, and we're preparing to do another 5% this year. While keeping the focus on high quality learning, because we also know the expectation is that our students achieve, our families send students to us hoping and expecting for growth to happen, and we need to ensure that. Now, how we ensure that with fewer resources is a conversation that we engage in every day. We hope that the conversation on adequately funding public schools doesn't end or only pick up during the biennium when the funding happens, that it's a conversation we continue to have.
Could you speak a little bit more to, I know that there's been a significant amount of early literacy investment from the state, but what you attribute these middle school math improvements to?
Sure, I can jump in. What we've been doing is we created a unified vision of what teaching and learning looks like with our teachers. We call that our instructional framework. So it lays out what we expect to see in every classroom for every student every day. We also have provided materials to our teachers so that they don't have to spend as much time, hopefully, planning lessons that meet the grade level standard in mathematics, right? And our mathematics curricula and those materials were placed in the hands of teachers a little bit before our English language arts materials. And then we also have provided professional learning that was both centralized and individualized at the school building via our instructional coaches. And we believe that, in part, those investments are helping us with our students in mathematics in particular.
Yeah, and then one of the things that I just want to lift up is that when progress happens, when growth happens, it's not just a win for Portland Public Schools, it's a win for our city. We continue to say that that partnership that is needed for growth to happen, for us to continue to realize Portland as a destination city out of all the cities across the United States, we believe that to be true, and we know that we need to steadily make progress. And one of the things that I'm excited to lift up is that our students with individualized education plans, these are students who are served through our special education program is continuing to make progress. So I would love to invite up Dr. Biano to share a little bit more specifically around that.
Yeah, good morning. Jay Buno, Chief of Student Services. Yeah, no, we're excited to see growth with our students with disabilities. It's a comprehensive focus, and so what I mean by that is students with disabilities experience the general education curriculum. So the curriculum's in the core classrooms, and the more that the students' disabilities are included in that instruction, the more growth that we will continue to see with them, along with the supports, the special education supports that we provide. So focusing on the implementation and access to the high quality instructional materials, the grade level standards aligned materials. In addition to that, our learning and our support that we're providing for teachers across the system. So we're really excited about the growth of our students with disabilities. At the same time, we recognize we have more work to do. We want our students with disabilities, our students who receive special education services to be able to experience and engage in the same opportunities that all students do, and then the only way we're going to do that is continue to focus on having them included in the core instruction and part of the general education curriculum. So.
And I wonder if I could ask you guys to address a statistic that isn't getting talked about as much today anyway, which is the graduation rate. It seems to me there's a little bit of a disconnect between the high levels of students who are graduating and the levels of students who are, or the numbers of students who are working at level 3 and level 4 on SBAC tests versus level 2 and level 1. I wonder if you could help us understand that, just why you think there's this discrepancy between graduation rates and state assessment test scores. Understanding, of course, that 11th graders tend not to take the test in enormous numbers.
I appreciate the question, Julia. I think it's a matter of knowing that with each of us, right, many of us were teachers, you would find a little bit of variability in maybe how we held standards and things like that. And so graduation is really measuring something different than OSAS measures. Graduation is measuring whether you've met, as determined by your educator, all the standards in the credit-bearing courses, whereas OSAS is saying, are you at this level of proficiency? In a perfect world, those two things would be the same. I come from a state, as you know, where students have to pass 4 tests, ELA, math, biology, and science, in order to graduate, and we don't have that requirement here. And so that makes it a little bit different when we think about graduation rate versus OSAS test performance. And we don't have a measure at the high school level right now because so many of our students opt out and we don't get to that minimum threshold that ODE says we should look at the data reliably, which is 80%.
Can I ask you guys about the opt-out culture here in Portland? It's not, I was looking at some of the participation rates across large districts yesterday, and PPS is in that sort of 91 to 94% range for 3rd through 8th graders-ish, right? But how does the district message to parents that this is important and that you want, as I assume you do, you want their kids to sit for these tests?
Well, I think, it is the opt-out culture. Parents have a lot of choice here in Oregon. In other states, they don't necessarily allow you to opt out of the statewide assessment, right? And so what we try to do is impart upon our families and our teachers the importance of understanding where their children are. One of those data points is the statewide assessment. And we try not to overemphasize it because you don't want people getting anxious or nervous. We want them to feel like this is an assessment, but I've been doing my work in my classroom. I should feel comfortable and confident as a student that I can be successful on OSAS as well. And so we do all the things that I think a good district would do in terms of trying to impress the importance of the assessment without overstressing it. And then we also, as required by ODE, do have to notify parents that they have the option to opt out. And we do see that, especially at the high school level, in different pockets and communities at a differential rate.
So interesting. And I know that you guys provide through Parent Square, right? Each parent gets to see
Parent
how their
View.
child. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's
Parent
okay, it's
View.
confusing. We have Parent Square and we have Parent View.
Okay, so you provide through Parent View how students are doing. So
That is something I'll honestly have to get back to you because I don't want to give you the wrong answer unless Isaac knows the answer. And he's going to come on up and get the phone a friend.
Yes, I'm a parent here in the district, and we did get an email saying, hey, we're going to have OSAS results released later this week. You can check your Parent Square, Parent View to get access to those results. And so parents are notified that they are coming out, and they know it's going to be in this current week.
Great,
Yeah.
okay. I'm a high school parent, so I haven't gotten that yet.
Okay.
Do we have additional questions?
Can I briefly piggyback off one of Julia's questions about graduation rate? I'm just curious, so there's obviously this test that kind of tells you, or should indicate to a student whether or not they're college and career ready, and then you're saying that the graduation rate, is something completely different, but also doesn't graduation kind of technically indicate that you will be, successful later on in college and career? So I feel like just how do you square those two numbers? I know you say they're different, but I feel like they both kind of indicate ultimately the same way.
Sure. What I would say is no single metric or descriptor can, in my mind, adequately and completely capture the potential of a student. I can tell stories of students who didn't have great GPAs in high school, who went on to community and four-year college and were successful, right? And I can tell stories of students who were highly successful in terms of their grade point average in high school, who didn't necessarily meet with success in college and may have left college early. My son was one of those kids, straight A student, and then college suddenly was a barrier for him. And so I have firsthand experience in understanding that disconnect, and it's something that we continue to study and think about because we understand it is quizzical. When you think about, oh, you didn't perform to the state standard on this assessment, and you're performing and you're getting A's and B's in class, and what is that disconnect? And one of the ways we're trying to address that is by implementing standards-based grading. Thank you.
Dr. Bruno, I wonder if I could ask you another question. I wonder if you could give us an update on the neighborhood inclusion model. I know that the rollout was slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
How does that stand this year with special ed, and where do you see it going in the years ahead?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. We're very excited to continue to focus on the neighborhood model in our, so we have 8 elementary schools that are doing that work. And so what that means is that if you're a student with a disability, you attend the neighborhood school that you otherwise would. In special education, sometimes IEP teams make decisions that students would receive some sort of specialized programming, and up until this point in Portland, we have provided sometimes that programming at other schools. And so in this model, or in this way of doing things, we have brought the services to the neighborhood schools to support the students so they can be and will be a part of their school community, which is extremely important. And then you combine that with access to core resource and instruction in the general education classroom, and we have seen significant growth and support for the kids. So getting to the answer to your question, we continue to focus on helping to support those 8 schools, and we are excited to be able to talk about expanding that as we move forward. Ultimately, we would like to have and ensure that that's the model we implement across our elementary schools in Portland.
We have time for one more question. I believe this young lady had one,
Yeah,
and
I
then Dr.
wanted to
Armstrong.
see if there was any correlation with the cell phone free zones and maybe kids focusing a little bit more. Is there a correlation between the increase, the positive increase in grades that we've been seeing? Would you say it's somewhat connected or totally?
That's a fair question. I don't know if we have the data yet to analyze that, but what I can tell you is that so far in all of the buildings that I've been in at the secondary level, when asked about the cell phone policy and what differences people are seeing or experiencing, they're talking about fewer incidents of, distracted students. They are having conversations at lunch. They're talking to each other. What a novel idea. And that students are reporting that they're feeling more engaged in schools. Now, what we do plan to do now that we are 2 years into the cell phone, but the 1 year or the first year of full implementation across the schools, we will be looking at data, doing some surveys and collecting, and I am suspecting that in future years we'll be able to see just the difference that made. I would say the number one thing, as I said earlier, that explains our growth is the fact that our teachers, our leaders, and our support staff are focused on grade level standards aligned work in the classrooms, that they're supporting students, they're providing the resources that's needed for students to get on track. We call that tier 1, which is like level 1. What do we want to be true for every single one of our students? We also know, though, that when focusing on tier 1, there's other students where that grade level standards aligned work isn't making a difference, or students may struggle. And that's when we then move to a tier 2 or like a step 2, where we provide interventions and support so that that student could access all of the things that they would be able to access at that first level. And so that is our focus, that's our why, that's our conversation that we have every day, right, for our learners. So I appreciate the question. And I think ultimately the way that I will close is the way that I began, which is that we're excited about the work that's happening in our classrooms. We believe so very much in the city of Portland and all of our schools across our district. And while we're not at 100% across the board, it's exciting to know that in the city of Portland, our students are making progress. And I believe will continue to make progress as a result of high quality teaching and learning. So I thank you all for coming out and appreciate you. Thank you.
So, with 6, almost